What an absolute pleasure having you all here. And of course, as always, we talk to some of the most amazing business leaders in the country, right, John Kieno Kammies live. Just a little bit of an update. So if you're listening to this on Disruption Monitor, of course, this has been recorded on Waitroom, which is a platform. But if it's the first time that you're watching this on the 230,000 strong Disruption Monitor, I'd just like to tell you about why we do this. You're going to be hearing from Adi Kaimowitz, who is a phenomenal business person. He's done some amazing stuff with his business, but we tell stories, granular stories of innovation. And innovation is not always easy. Innovation can be a pain in the ass sometimes. And it's those who stick through it, stick through the tough times, who end up making it. So Adi, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Good to have you.
Hello, Kieno. Thanks for having me here. Even though I'm shooting out at 1,000 megs, which is as fast as it can go, I have a poor connection, so we'll just muscle through. Can you hear what I'm saying? Is it coming out okay?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. No. I can hear you clearly. We'll do as much as we can for today, obviously. But I think for me, it's the audio that matters really, because this will be edited. This will be put on Disruption Monitor as well. So that's when we sort of edit it, make it a little bit more concise, and all the rest of it. But let us start with who you are. I mean, we all have heard of Virtual Actuary. Actuarial science is something that escapes a lot of us. If you saw my trick marks, you'd know that there's no way under God's blue sky that I'd make it into any actuarial course anywhere. But I've decided. There we go. That looks a lot better, by the way. But before we even talk about the high level, I always talk about the people behind the business. So who is Adi Kaimowitz? Just tell us a bit about yourself, and then we can talk about your journey to this particular phenomenal business that's doing what, 80 million rand an annum at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Kieno. Like everything in life, we have to roll with the punches. I mean, it is what it is. So hopefully my audio is relatively eligible. So who I am is I'm a South African. I was born in South Africa. I've been here my whole life. I was born in Cape Town, but I grew up in Johannesburg. I'm a Joburg boy. I think, so now I live in Cape Town. My neighbors around me in Bloberg, I stay on the West Coast. When I put up all the spikes and the fencing and all the security stuff, they realized that this is not a normal Cape Townian. So I have that Joburg hustle. And who is Adi? Adi is somebody who always loved sport, was always impressed by business leaders. I grew up in homes in Johannesburg of the most phenomenal business leaders. These were some of the parents of the kids I went to school with. And I just always looked up to them. So I'm somebody who's kind of still chasing that dream. It's not glamorous, but I think if you can reach the dream, it can be considered glamorous. I'm still chasing the dream.
Yeah. You look
I have a wife and 3, very much so. Thank you. So I actually moved to West Beach because of the kite surfing. It's here in Bloberg. I also have an off-road motorbike. I have 2 off-road bikes. So I like to ride my bikes as well in the sand dunes. I have a wife with 3 kids and one little one on the way, hopefully in December. And I guess I'm just somebody who's trying to, thank you, fit in to the business world and just actually survive. There's so many curveballs. So I'm just a guy that's trying to dodge curveballs and sometimes throw them back even harder.
Yeah, no, and that's the trick, right? It's a cliche now when we tell kids, you've got to learn to fail and stand up, and all these cliches. You got to fall forward and all the rest of it. But damn it, man, when it comes to the execution thereof, you look at yourself in the mirror sometimes and you say to yourself, "The hell am I doing? Why didn't I just stay where it was easy?" But as per my initial comment, it's those who stick through. It's those who, yes, might have lost a home or potentially have lost a home and had sleepless nights, but yet you pushed through because you had the right people around you and you knew this would work. Those are the people who end up making it. So let's talk about your road to virtual actuary, right? So, and we'll also talk about collaboration, etc., because this is built on collaboration, which I love. It's my favorite topic, as a matter of fact. But let's talk a little bit about your road and the lessons learned before you even started virtual actuary.
The road was not flat, or in my opinion, simple. And what would have been nice, the plan was after high school to go to UCT and get my BCom degree. I had dreams of progressing to a business science, but in 1998, 99, after just like 1 year, I decided that I would rather follow my dream of being a DJ, as crazy or stupid as that sounds. And I sold it all.
So you broke up there for a second. You followed your dream of being a what?
Of being a disc jockey.
Cool.
Okay, like a club DJ. And you know, it felt right at the time. And I followed my dreams. I moved to London to DJ in the clubs and buy music there, get into production and DJ from London. And so I did that. I did that for 2 years. It was unbelievable. It was the experience of a lifetime. I was also lucky that while I was DJing, I also worked in an office for the Willesden Eurotunnel. This is rail freight.
Okay.
I was involved in admin. So I always kind of earned money on the sales side. So I followed my dreams, but I earned money on the sales side. You know, when I was 14, 15, I got a job working in the flea markets at Four Ways and Broome. When I was 10 years old, I was pushing old ladies' trolleys at the Pick and Pay. That was my first job. So I always kind of rested, you know, fell back on the, you know, trying to sell stuff to survive. And when I came back from London, I had gotten telesales experience. And so the short story is that when I came back from London, as having worked a lot in sales, but the DJing did okay, I kind of try to pick myself back up and follow with the sales. You know, in sales, you can be the biggest legend in the world. All you need is a great company and a great product. If you have a great company and a great product,
correct,
you are absolutely made. Then it's just about interacting with people, going the extra mile, making yourself available. But you've got to have a great product. I kind of bounced around from job to job, I used to move to improve. So I would try and, if I spotted a company that was keen to take me on, that had a better product than I thought that I had before, then I would move to improve. And that was kind of the progression. And then I opened a recruitment company. We can talk about that a little bit as well. With actuaries, I was lucky enough to get a job working with actuaries in recruitment. I worked at that company for 1 year. I then broke away. I opened my own recruitment company. And then once LinkedIn made it a bit difficult to make money in recruitment for recruiters, I then had to, unfortunately, do the pivot. The pivot sounds glamorous and fall forward and all that stuff. I promise you now, if you have to pivot, your world has come to an end. And I had to pivot. Some very, very dark times during that period, trying to just breathe and get out of bed. But after 2 years of trying to pick myself up, the idea of virtual actuary came, and then we ran with that. That's the quick version.
So you're not just for the record, you're not an actuary.
Believe it or not, I'm not an actuary.
I love it.
You need to understand actuaries are people who have a gift. You know, I tried my best in high school and university, and I still didn't do well. You know, 50s, 60s. The actuaries just have this gift, memory and ability, and they get like full marks, you know, sort of 8, 9, 10, 11 distinctions, full house, you know, all the colors. You know, the only colors I had was like my brown suitcase. You know, that was the only colors I had. So I'm not an actuary, but what I do bring to the table is having worked in so many different businesses. I think that brings a certain business acumen.
Correct.
As well as the network of actuaries that I've been interacting with for about 14 years now, and helps us to scale the business. The rest, the key was to find an unbelievable team of actuaries and a CEO actuary that could join me. And they do the real amazing stuff. And I do more the admin and the bookkeeping and the recruitment and that kind of stuff. And it's actually a great collaboration.
Yes. And on that point, right? So we always, and I look at the future of work. And yesterday I had a wonderful chat with Vuyon Pako, who is the MD for Growth and Innovation at Old Mutual. Well, it's now called Next 176. And he said to me, you know, we're looking at the gig economy. And this gig economy in the world post-COVID, where people are wanting, they have this taste of what it's like for those fortunate enough, because not everybody is obviously fortunate enough to be able to have an office space at home and work from there. But for those who are fortunate enough, they now have this taste of freedom, and they're trying to take their skills and spread it across the globe. And this is where collaboration really comes in. And I mean, it's also the premise that we used at Innovation City to start the business. You know, we've started businesses. Stefan, I think, is more of a business person than I am. I'm more of a people's person. I connect the dots. We make sure that we solve problems for people by bringing the right people into the mix. And you needn't have had 90s and 100% in matric a couple of years ago in order to make it today. So what are some of the core skills that you see? I mean, looking at your own business, but then also looking more broadly, what are some of the core skills you think young people will need in order to make it in this world?
It's such a great question, because over the years, I've spent my time learning soft skills.
Yeah.
Okay, these are not tertiary skills. So when we talk about the gig economy, what we're also talking about is the ability for anybody with a decent computer and an internet connection to participate.
Correct.
Anybody with a car to participate, or anybody with a flat to participate. You know, you're a participant, whether you're a designer or an actuary or an accountant or an engineer. You have the ability to participate and do a gig as long as you have the technology to connect. Now, the fourth industrial revolution has allowed, at an affordable level, anybody to connect in an affordable way. This is why the gig economy has exploded at the moment. Okay, so the gig economy is quite transactional. I have this gig that I can do. You can book me through a booking platform, and thank you very much. It's very transactional. So this is what's played itself out probably the last 10 years. Yep. So what we're going into at the moment, and this whole collaboration thing, is something called the organized gig economy, or what we call the mega gig economy. So what that means is that you can bring together gig economy people that all work in a particular sector, that understand that the goal is that if we collaborate together, you have the ability to do this part of the value chain, you have the ability to do that part of the value chain. And if the client is ultimately looking for a solution or a product or a service, right? So if you can organize that value chain and say, Tina's going to do this and Paul's going to do that, Hannes is going to do this, then we should be able to go to the client with a proposal that says, under all circumstances, you would have gone to a big four or a big consulting business or whatever the case may be, and you would have gotten your complete product. There, everybody would have been on a salary. Yes. But us, if you give us that job, and it's sometimes at 6 months or 3 months or a year, if you give us that job, this is the breakdown of the value chain. This is the breakdown of the proposal. This one's going to do this one, this one's going to do that, and this is the pricing. Yeah. What should happen is you should be able to compete as a consortium for that piece of work. It's very organized. If that client signs the proposal, we all got work.
Yes.
But the main difference is that at the end of each month, when we invoice, when the company invoices, because it's an organized gig economy, when the company invoices and the client pays, we will then split the money. It's a shared revenue model. So the key in the future of work, the key is two things. Number one is to be organized enough that when you bring people together, we have an understanding as to how we're going to split the money should we get work. And you're only going to get paid on a commission basis when the client pays.
Sure.
So if you can stomach that, waiting to get paid and being organized enough, and you get that like push and pull going, you should in theory be able to operate as a corporate in the meg gig economy. YouTube would be a brilliant example. Content creators, advertisers, viewers, all using YouTube as the mega gig economy platform. There's push and pull. The content creators eventually get paid if their content is good enough. The viewers go to those content creators' channels, knowing that they're going to get a good quality, and the advertisers piggyback on the whole thing. So it's kind of very similar in the mega gig economy for professionals or for anybody, that if you can create the ecosystem and there's that push and pull that starts to happen, eventually you'll have enough clients and you'll be able to operate together as a consortium. And that's kind of what we did with Virtual Actuary. And it's been quite successful. We're going into year 5 now.
Wow. And I mean, we'll talk about those numbers, right? Seeing as we are talking about the actuarial sciences, we can't have an interview and not talk about the numbers. But, you know, Adi, I'm just thinking, and there was advocate Yvonne Wakefield, and I forget the name of a blinking company now, but you were just talking about how you can bring all these gig workers together, and she brought together some of, it's called Caveat Legal. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I think I've heard that name.
Yeah. So Yvonne is super sharp, right? And she's gotten all these big firm attorneys who are now operating from home to come together and deliver services under this umbrella called Caveat Legal. And I remember doing a pitch with them on one of the businesses that I had. And I looked at, obviously the value proposition is, listen, you're getting great legal experience, great legal insights, and you're getting it at, wait for this, a third of the cost of a traditional lawyer from a big firm. Why can you do that? Number one, those attorneys are making their own money. They keep 100% of the profits. They don't have all these operational expenditure like big businesses and budgets of this and that and wine and dine and whatever. Things are pretty lean. But at the end of it, you've cut out the fat and you're delivering the value. And you know, for me, that's obviously key in whatever we do. And I'm very much a people's person. People say, how were you ever a chief strategy officer at a tech firm when you think Ruby on Rails is a girl who got drunk? And I normally say, well, you know, I'm the people person in tech, because without understanding people and their needs, you can't deliver proper value, right? And I think you strike me as that type of person as well. So let's talk about the value that Virtual Actuary actually offers and to who you offer that value.
And so, Kieno, you're like me. You are an expert in what I call highway theory, or in US terms, freeway theory, the connector. You know, like Google, is you connect the technology-able people with the clients who want technology services. It's the same thing. You're the freeway, the highway.
Yep.
So Virtual Actuary is, in the actuarial industry, is a relatively simple business to understand. Okay, so the first thing is that actuaries work in different sectors: in life insurance, general insurance, banking, pensions, healthcare, and investments. There's another side hustle called wider fields, which is telecommunications and stuff like that. Okay. So within those sectors, the clients are generally actuary directors, product owners, unit heads, team leads, who are generally actuaries in most cases, that have teams of actuaries working underneath them. Now, in certain instances, their workflow is just too big, or they want to launch new products, or from a regulatory perspective, there's a recalibration. Like now we have moving into IFRS 17, which is quite a big thing. I mean, your teams of actuaries are working in their normal jobs. Now you have to recalibrate your whole reporting financial structure. Okay, so you need IFRS 17 teams of actuaries. So our clients are those actuaries who need quality teams of actuaries to fulfill certain tasks. Quite often, those projects last a year or two. Oh, wow. 6 months, a year or two. They're very big projects. Okay, so we would compete, I guess, for the work directly with your big four. Okay, because from a size perspective, we have about 60 actuaries in-house. Now it's probably a bit more now. And they all work full time. Even though they're commission earners, we're not a contractor's business, which is quite a difficult misconception to understand. So the actuaries do not work in silos alone. They work in team environments spread across various teams various projects.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would happen is your Sunlums and your Old Mutuals and your Metropolitans and your Stanlibs and your Azupols and, all the normal, your Standard Banks and your Nedbanks, all your regular banks and insurers and your reinsurers, they have teams of actuaries. So these are the clients that we work with.
Right.
And we have teams and teams of actuaries inside those clients, and the work is ongoing. But as you've absolutely mentioned, it's not rocket science or actuarial science, is that I always believed that the big firms had massive, lavish expenses.
Yep.
Big high street office space, very expensive, la-di-da, and ultimately who pays for that stuff is the clients, all that fat. And traditionally, that is how it went. The clients were more than happy to pay for that as long as you got the big name brand behind you. But as things have progressed, the clients have also realized they have budgets. And if they can get just as competent a team of actuaries as a big four could provide, a fraction of the price. Why? Because we work with lean principles. How can we go to market in the leanest possible way without reducing the quality of the service or the quality of the delivery? In fact, I'd say we match it, and arguably our service is better. Arguably. Okay. But definitely our price point is half price to the big four, sometimes less, mainly because we just don't have the expenses and so on. Okay. The second thing is that they actually split the money as well when the money does come in, and we negotiate 7 to 14 days payment terms on invoice. So you have to walk away from a client if they're not willing to accommodate the 7 to 14 days. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's a very important one, because the actuaries that work in our teams want to feel like it's a salary. They don't want to feel that there's a risk. You're going to bring me enough clients. I'm going to work in a team environment that's identical. Just make sure I can get paid on time.
Yep.
If you can guarantee that, so even at half the price, the split that they get often works out to double what they would get paid as a salaried employee.
Which speaks to the fat that gets created in these big organizations as well. When I say fat, I mean the unnecessary BS that and in any case, I mean we talk about this 50% saving, double the salary.
Yeah, it's a four-way swing.
Yeah. I mean that's phenomenal, right? But would you say that COVID opened up a lot more actuaries to want to follow this particular path?
So what happened was we started, I built the business and brought the actuaries together in 2017. We marketed October, November, December 2017, and February 2018, we picked up our first client.
Right.
So, that was 2018. So 2018 and 19 were normal years. Okay. We did off the bat, 11.5 million Rand in year one, and then 32.5 million Rand in year two. That's off the bat, from a cold start. Okay. And that's really just speaks to, not to me, but to the testament of the quality of the actuaries that have a vested interest in the clients being happy. The clients are happy, they buy more, they use us as their ongoing team. And so, the snowball. Right? That would be your gross revenue before you pay the actuaries.
Okay.
Okay. And those are very reduced rates. So if you're looking at what the budgets of the Big Four are, it would be significantly bigger. Okay, well, your more traditional firms. So that was 2018, 2019, and then 2020 COVID kicked in. Now, before that, we were networking online on LinkedIn with overseas clients, directors of insurers and reinsurers and banks. Why don't you utilize our team of actuaries? Luckily, the Actuarial Society of South Africa has maintained the standards so high that South African actuaries are absolutely regarded overseas as just quality thinkers, just such business acumen. So we didn't have to prove that they did that for the entire industry in South Africa. We got a great name internationally, but the clients were so used to people walking into the door. So even at half the rate or even at a reduced rate, I've got a lot of people that are happy to walk into the door and work and sit at the desk all day long. So it was significantly more difficult, not impossible, and we were picking up some overseas clients, but more difficult to convince them to use a virtual team. Dun, 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 COVID kicks in. Okay. And, I believed, the reason we call the business Virtual Actuary is I believed that traffic and, in my opinion, a more violent world is going to lead to people not wanting to travel to and from work. That people were going to work more virtually. Now, COVID sped that up. And all of a sudden, all those clients and the interactions we've had, we just started getting inquiries coming and say, well, our team's working virtually anyway, let's talk. And then the actuaries would sit. So, and we would generally get that work. We would beat out the Big Four, some of the big consulting firms into Ireland. And so over the last 2 years, about 30% of our clients are now offshore.
Wow.
Okay. So, so now we've gone to, sort of 36 and past 50, and this year will be an 80 million rand year. And that's, we do a lot of work in Lebanon and Egypt and Indonesia and Malaysia and the Netherlands and Europe and New Zealand and South America. So what COVID has really done is it has allowed the clients to say, actually, they are right. We can have virtual teams. So now we're like this weird space where people are trying to decide, virtual, it's a thing of the past. But, unfortunately, people learn nothing. You get hit with the biggest ugly stick you've ever been hit in your life, and you're still thinking like that. I'm not surprised the companies just lose less amounts of money, because instead of actually saying, okay, that was like a wake-up call, guys. Now we've got a little bit of time to like recalibrate. Okay, correct. So we don't want this big office. Let's rather give all of our workers a pod to work with from home. Let's rather think that the world is going digital. Retail shops are going to turn into vending machines. The whole world is going to go more virtual and more digital. If you're in the medical field, a service provider, your clients are not going to come to you. You need to learn to go to your clients. I had a nurse that came to my house to do some blood tests and stuff. And I was like, hey, kids, look, this is what a real nurse is like. And they came to us. Perfect. So the world is going virtual, and you can, if you want to fight it, you're going to find that when another COVID, God forbid, or another black swan event kicks in and things are more digital, well, you know what? You should actually be fired if you didn't take the runway that you had and do something with it to just like hedge the risk. What I think is.
It's no different though. And you could be talking about actuarial sciences. You can be talking about media. I mean, I look at media. They do the same shit different day. Everybody's still chasing 30-second ads. And I mean, the one thing, I mean, I don't know all the answers, and I love learning each and every day. But the common thread and theme that I get is, what's the value? Where are your customers? Where do they find themselves? What situation do they find themselves? What are the pain points? And what can you do to try and make life easier for them? And in my mind, for example, radio stations, have a phenomenal role to play, right? So they've built good brands, they've got presenters on them and trusted brands. But how are we actually utilizing that to make people's lives easier while at the same time, because, hey, we're capitalists and I'm happy to be a capitalist, while making money at the same time. So for me, the 30-second ad is dead. It will be dead soon, I think. Maybe if you're talking talk radio, maybe a bit different. But I think the 30-second ad will be killed by ShopRite X. Because ShopRite X has got this platform. It's called stores. 80% of the country goes through their stores. They know which demographic goes to which store. They now understand buying power. They've got they work with companies like Omniscient, and they've got all this wonderful, rich, they've got this data set that's second to none when you look at, and they utilize that to serve advertising inside their stores. So for me, and I'm speaking about them from a media perspective, what are these big media companies doing? It's the same like the big four, the big five. What are they doing? Are they continuing, utilizing the big business spaces, the massive overheads, all of this? And quite frankly, everybody's going to have a Kodak moment if they don't wake up and smell the coffee.
So I think that one of the reasons why it's difficult to change ways of doing things is because those that are in leadership positions at a board level, their assessment criteria is based on certain growth and certain results.
Sure.
And their bonus structure is linked to that. It's the bonus criteria. So now, if you have built up to get to that point, and you have 5 years in this position, and then potentially, you could get your pension or whatever, you'd rather drive an old bus as long as you can for those 5 years and hope that the trajectory is reliable, and it might not be exponential, but it's reliable, and your own, revenue after that is more guaranteed. Or do you risk it all and try something risky? So the problem is if you try that, this is where it changes. Or it's different. If you try that, how is it going to be viewed in the group structure? If people are going to wave their finger at you and come down on you for going for it, you will find as a culture, people will be scared to go for it. But if in fact trying stuff is encouraged and you don't get penalized for it at a group structure, then you will find that those companies have the ability to shoot the lights out. Maybe there's a blended approach there. So, where you could maybe take 25% of your current strategy and keep it as is, and or 50% or 40%, and the rest is you flip and put it all in the bucket and you try your absolute best. So that's the reason why I think, big companies are slow to change, because you could really get hammered for trying if it doesn't work.
It's an executive and I mean, even I suppose C-suite. It's a C-suite issue, really. And once again, I juxtapose our conversation with what's happening at Old Mutual at the moment. Ian Williamson, he sat opposite us and said,
"Nice guy,
very nice guy." He sat opposite us and said, "We can't have this innovation team sitting in Old Mutual." He said, "We need to get that team out of Old Mutual and we need to put them in another space." And we obviously took him around our space and he said, "This is it." Fuyo was there the next day talking to us. 3 weeks later, we were asked to send them a contract so that Old Mutual's 176 or next 176 could actually sit at Innovation City. And what I loved about that interaction is, they didn't ask us for a business model and a business plan. We don't have one. I openly say it. We're now starting to create, we're taking our canvas, now that we understand what value looks like, and we're now starting to work on the business plan side of it, although it's not your traditional business plan per se. So what we do is very effectual in nature. But the one thing with Ian was he noticed, he saw that he had this vision. He said, my team could work here, and that's it. And what they did was they took the team out of the structure at Old Mutual. what he's still, so there's corporate governance is there. He sits on the board of Next 176 as the CEO, the group CEO. Vio gets to run that, but that unit gets run. So everything from payments to staff, every process and structure that's been put in place is outside of Old Mutual, right? Which to me was just mind-blowing that such a big corporate that's been around for 176 years has a leader with such foresight to take such risk, because there's risk of them cannibalizing the traditional business as well. But all corporates need to do that. So I'm saying it actually sits with executive leadership in business. So if your business is not operating to its full potential from an innovation perspective, it's the CEO's problem. And it's the board's problem, because it's up to them to create an environment where people can actually have the sort of sandbox to play in. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And I think we are going into the era where as leaders of certain businesses, and what's interesting is a lot of our actuaries are the leaders in our business. I just try to lift them up. Okay. But I have got some nice ideas, and if they can implement them, fantastic. But all of our actuaries in our business are leaders, and I'm really just there to make them be able to be leaders. Okay. So what you'll find is that back in the day, the direction of the business, the branding of the business, the ideas of the business was pretty much done by a marketing department. And, great adverts, driving on a long road with lights, and you sort of, pull over to tie your shoelace, and you look at the kids sort of sleeping in the baby seats, and money managers, just perfect. So what that means is that the leaders have done nothing, at that point. Okay.
Correct.
So now with the age of LinkedIn and Instagram and technology, what you will find, and some leaders have got it right, they are, and their ideas and their insight is actually the face of the business. They are stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
So we're moving away from the corporate brand world to the you as a brand world. Wow, look at this guy. I mean, my biggest hero of all time, and I've told him personally, is Adrian Gore. He just does this so well, where he will step up to the plate and say, this is what we stand for. This is who we are. This is what I believe about this. My ideas might not be going with the flow, but this is the direction that I believe we should all be thinking. Now that is very, very important. As leaders, is to actually step up on social media and actually be out there. But also, my point is, when it comes to product ideas, when it comes to product innovation, when it comes to how we're going to be better this year than we were last year. Back in the day, you would have a CEO or an MD that sat at a boardroom and said, I want ideas. Give me the insight. Let's have a look at the analytics and the testing done from all these other companies. Weigh it up. Okay, run with it. It's very, very, telling people what to do based on work that other people have done and ideas that other people have come up with.
Right.
It's actually the responsibility of the CEO not to run the business, but to make the business break through glass ceilings.
Exactly.
When they are in the shower and they thinking of new products, new territories, new ideas, it is actually their responsibility to take the business to those heights. And if there's a leader in a business who's not taking on that role, they are the wrong leader. Sometimes I see certain companies that have lost a CEO trying to find a replacement CEO, and the replacement CEO from another firm who was a leader at a competitor. So all you've basically done is you've taken somebody who's very transactional from another company, and you've brought them into your business to be transactional. And that is why your business is more, and the growth and the innovation is transactional. But you'll find the companies that do the best are the ones that bring in leaders from a completely different industry who have been leaders in other industries and just let them loose. Now, of course, there's risk factors. You don't want them to burn the flip and place down.
Sure.
Okay. But let the ideas and the innovation and the things that they saw in the minds of Czechoslovakia come into the telecommunications space in South Africa, they will make a significantly better CEO. So it's really about where do the ideas come from? Where does the innovation come from? And that's what I think.
Yeah, and also creating the environment needs to be created where innovation can flourish. Because if we are believers in the likes of design thinking, it takes diverse teams to come together. Nobody has the answer when you do a design thinking process. The CEO is equal to the person who sits down on the ground, crunching numbers, is equal to the marketing person when it comes to the ideification side of things and going through this design thinking process. But you need an organization that allows you to fail within reason. And so for me, it's really about the environment that you do create. Because you can have a lot of people with great ideas, but if Kieno's desk is the best place for an idea to go and die, then they're going to stop sending it to Kieno, because Kieno just looks at it and goes, I don't think it's going to work. Oh, I don't know. When you should really be giving your people, giving them permission within the business to fail responsibly, to learn from that and try new things. And that is when I keep mentioning Old Mutual. I'm just such a big fan. I used to think it was this big, boring, staid company, and it's not. They're doing interesting stuff where some of the people with the younger, funkier brands, if you like, are still sitting and doing the same thing over and over and over again. So it's just amazing what leadership can do.
Yeah, so I'll say two more quick things. The first one is about leadership. I think that if you want those big companies to flourish, the leaders have to eliminate completely any backstabbing and politics.
Yes.
So if you realize that there's a manager that's, taking the credit for work that the juniors are doing or something, that kind of politics, it's very toxic.
Yeah.
And so if you have any of that like toxic politics and backstabbing and happening in your organization, you have to chop it off. So that's the first thing. And that doesn't happen often. And being able to spot that is actually the difference between businesses that are great and businesses that just are okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think we're also in an interesting time for startups and innovation and I think just the world. Is that unfortunately, I think what's also happened in the startup venture capital scene is that a lot of these startups that are being celebrated are who did the biggest raise, who has raised the most amount of money. Unbelievable. We're all chasing the Facebook and the Instagram and the Airbnb success. But that particular model, that particular model and that way of thinking will guarantee you of two things. Number one, an investor that is expecting 100x.
Yes.
Now, when you earn 100x, it means that the founder has lost 99% of what they should have had. That's not fair. It's actually not fair. And the second thing, what it does is it causes startups to want to grow too quickly at the detriment of stability. So what happens is you do a round of raising. Why? So that you can build the product, burn the money, hire people, do a big marketing exercise, because that's your runway, only to get to the next stage where you can do another round of raising to globalize and you're not even a profitable business. But you are growing. It's kind of like, you're going from one firework to the next firework to the next firework, hoping that it's not going to blow up while you're holding it.
Like WeWork. Or like really any insurtech or fintech IPO that has happened over the last year or two, where the stock price has just gotten to a certain point and then fell off a cliff. Why did it fall off a cliff? Because at the core level, when you look at the profitability, the quality of the business in its ability to grow and be stable, what you will find is there was a lot of hot air there. Yes.
But it's fine because the VCs made the cash. They cashed out already. Who cares? All you have is a founder that now has 2% of their own business where they could have had 35%. You think that founder is going to be as innovative with 2% as they were at 35%? Absolutely not. You've destroyed the business. So, so the key really is to actually appreciate startups and innovation departments that are looking to get clients and get those clients enjoying the product. Get clients and get the clients enjoying the product. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. If you can get clients interacting with your business, if you can get products out that people are actually using, then you can get that feedback session. What you will find is that you might not grow at exponential rates, but you go at pretty decent rates. And at the end or in midway, you'll have a business that has great clients and great traction. That's kind of like our story.
Yeah.
So we're still a self-funded global business. So we do have an
insurtech you've had have you raised anything? Nothing.
Zero. We haven't had 1 cent of raising.
Wow,
our
brilliant.
Growth is completely organic. We have over 90 clients, 5 different continents, 60 actuaries. So now we're at that point where our teams of actuaries are loving the clients, loving working together. We've had 4 people resign in 4.5 years.
Wow.
Okay. So we've created this environment of efficiency, teamwork, responsibility, and the clients that we've taken on have just loved working with us. So now we're at that point where we're looking, well, how can we now start making and producing more software for the insurance industry? So now we're at that point where we can actually afford to develop our own software, our own products, and actually pivot more towards being a software business in the insurtech and fintech space. So what could have happened, and this is in 4.5 years, what could have, and I think we've done like 135 million so far. Obviously this year will be 80, and so it will be maybe 190 by the end of the year, whatever next year. So what has happened is, what could have happened is we could have taken on 20 million rand, we could have had a team of developers, and we could have had 3 or 4 products by now. Now we've got to try and sell those products. So it's better to rather have sort of 150 clients over the space of 6 years, where you've eventually developed 2 products, and 25% or 30% of those clients are using those products.
Yep.
So we could have done the round of raising, but we haven't yet. And also, what the honest truth is, I haven't yet found an investor that fell in love with us, that said, you know what? And also, we don't want South African investors. We want $20-30 million.
Yeah. Oh, you're not going to get that here.
You're not going to get that here. Exactly. Yeah. So when we do have those conversations, people think we're Meshuggah. What are you talking? So, bring me an investor says, what, I believe in the concept. You're looking to take on the big 4 globally. Here's your $30 million. Like, I don't care about the yardstick over the next 2 to 3 years. I'm in for 10 years. Go out there and build a great business. Use the money to grow responsibly. I haven't had that yet. So that's
why. I mean, I look at your business, and I'm listening to you now over the last
Why even take on any money?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, obviously, there are people who don't want to invest in your business. I mean, that's the one thing. You're not just going to.
Oh, why haven't some? Okay.
Yeah. So there are people who, because I mean, that's another important thing. You can get money. They say money is not the problem. It's the people you have to work with and what they give you for the money, because that money runs out. Your runway runs out. They sometimes are assholes. They're not opening up enough doors. You've just wasted a lot of time, and it's been a very expensive exercise for everybody. I just think that, I mean, we're still going to need actuaries, right? Why is it that you think that that some of these investors have not fallen in love with you or the product?
In Yiddishkeit, I'm Jewish. They have a concept known as a beshert. Your chosen one, wife, your partner, your beshert.
Yes.
Now, finding your soul partner takes time. It's not forced. It has to align. And so, what happens is, the most important thing that you can do is work on yourself. So Virtual Actuary is working on itself. We have tentacles out there. I've connected with almost, a lot or most of the big VCs globally. The big, we're talking like hardcore, proper people that have the cash. And, like I have chatted with the biggest fintech firm in the US that only, write checks of 100 million. We're looking for 30. So we're not ready for them yet. So what happens is you have to work on yourself. So you can't force it. It doesn't happen quickly. It's only been 4.5 years. And so it's just a timing thing. It takes time to work on yourself. If you were looking for a partner or a wife, grow a business, go out there, work on your body and try and find a home to live in. You will find a better partner once you're set up than when you're not set up. You see, finding investors is also a full-time job.
Correct.
Pitching is a full-time job. Doing presentations is a full-time job. Myself and my team are too busy making our clients happy and actually growing the ideas and the concepts and the products and, too busy doing that than going on a full-time investment hunt. I just think it's more important to rather grow the business.
Now, you see, that's that's the point that I was sort of alluding to when I asked the question. Do you really? I'm not averse to VCs, but as far as I'm concerned, they're bankers without ties. A lot of them. And damn it, if you gave me two choices to grow a business that's a gazelle that does 20% per year for the next 4 or 5 years, and I'm growing my client base, I'm organically going into new markets, and I find partners, why the heck would I want someone who's going to try and gobble up a huge percentage of my business, then get on my board and could potentially change the culture of what I've just developed and which is working, and by the way, is manageable because I know who my team is. I don't have any outsiders telling me to do this, that, and the other thing. So I think it's quite risky. As much as the money looks alluring, you have to ask yourself, at what cost do you take on that particular money?
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you why. So the first thing is that we've split our share class.
Okay.
So 30% of the founder shares will have more than 51% of the voting in a shareholders meeting, then 70% of the equity partners. We've already split our share class. The investor shares are equity participants. They cannot tell us what to do unless we spend more than, say, R1 million, or we have to hire somebody above a certain amount per year. That's why they won't come in and tell us what to do. We did a huge memorandum of incorporation and shareholder agreement restructure before we even brought anybody on board. And we do have some investor partners, but they were given equity to be part of the business. They weren't sold equity because they're strategic. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, as a business, we are actually as ridiculous. South Africans, I spoke to Hilton Kellner, Herschel Mayers from Discovery.
Yes.
And I said to him, how come you guys did so? He said, because we actually believed we could. Okay, so it's very similar with us, is we actually believe that we are looking to take on the biggest actuarial consulting firms in the world at a global level. These are your big four globally, the Americas, Asia, Middle East, Europe, and so on, South Africa. We actually believe we can do it. So we are not going to be able to do it as a little mom and pop organic growth family business.
Sure.
The numbers that we're doing is as respectable as they are. They're not institutional R1 billion a year sort of, $1 billion. The software companies we're looking to compete with globally are multi-billion dollar companies. You cannot try to, there's two specifically, and you cannot compete with them unless you have proper institutional firepower. Proper.
Absolutely.
So there comes a point where you have to decide, are you going to be a local success story, or are you going to try to be a global success story? Now, unfortunately, I also have, like an OCD, once I start collecting shoes, once I start collecting kites, once I start collecting things, I normally go all in and I try and get as many as I can. So that's the problem. The problem is we have ambitions to be global and big. And so that is the reason why you have to get institutional money in my opinion, when the time is right, when you meet your Bashar.
Absolutely. You can't put Goliath there. I mean, your little stone, I mean, it worked once, but I mean, sometimes you need to take something a lot more substantial to that particular fight. Now, time for us to almost wrap. And it's been wonderful, by the way. I love you as a leader, just listening to you, learning quite a lot. So thank you very much for this. What about artificial intelligence and actuarial science?
It's a great question. So it's very similar to technology. You get a lot of insurtechs and fintechs. Somebody has a certain amount of product knowledge. They then team up with a technology partner who takes this little bit of product knowledge, not even that good, and they create this product. I'm an insurtech, I'm a fintech. Wow! A lot of people think that technology or AI is the product.
Yeah.
It's not. It's an enabler of your product. It's an enabler of your ability. So when it comes to AI or any technology build or anything that you do, it is only as good as what it's being used for and the team that is using it. Yes. So that's what I think.
And how it solves the problem for your particular customer, right? Because I go back to what I said right at the beginning. We can have all these fancy things without understanding the people and their needs, without understanding, how one even emotionally engages them. Because believe it or not, you can emotionally engage someone through actuarial science and services, because it's people delivering those services. It's the way they deliver those services. It's the type of problems you solve and how you solve those problems. The money you save for them, because now they're able to do other things with that money, which maybe goes towards that business's a bigger goal or passion. I just think that if you understand people and you deliver to those people's needs, the most. I did a little bit of studying through MIT. I did a executive course on business strategy, and the one thing we were taught was how to actually take a bit of technology and how to create a roadmap into a business. That is probably one of the most, other than the algorithms and the models that have been created, because they're only enablers, as you say. It's how you navigate the people who could trip up the technology that counts as well. So
yeah. So the last thing I'm going to say, and to finish off, and firstly, I must say, Kieno, this is a life moment for me to be chatting with you. When I was like 13 years, sort of 12, 13 years old, I used to lie in bed and fall asleep to 7 or 2. For years, and I'm just saying, talk radio, I just love that stuff, Okay. So what an honor it is for me to be chatting with you. So the story of David and Goliath is not about the fight itself between David and Goliath. That is not the story of the startup beating the big corp. The story of David and Goliath is actually a story of credibility. It is a story of David, the startup, having found faith in the king. The king saw when David was practicing that he could hit a bull at 50 yards, that he could hit it at 120 yards. David gained credit. He earned credibility when the king knew that he was going to have to put it all on the line, or the executive was going to bring the startup to the boardroom. They knew from a credibility perspective they would do brilliantly. And that is the story of the startup. That is the story of any AI delivery. It's the credibility of the people that are going to action it. That if you're going to put them forward with this technology, they are going to be able to deliver and not let you down. And that is the story of the startup, to establish that credibility. Because then, when people interact with you, it doesn't matter what you're doing, they know that you're going to be able to roll out. And that, I think, is the story of AI technology. Who's the team behind it? Are they credible? And we got that right, in my opinion. And that's the reason why the clients are at least taking us to the boardroom. And then once we deliver, we assert that they were right. We have that credibility factor. And that's why they keep coming back.
Now I understand what the head of the executive MBA at UCT said to me about a month and a half ago. He said, MBAs are good, EMBAs are good, but the best university is through story. And you, sir, have been a professor extraordinaire. Loved your insights, and just the topping on this wonderful discussion. Obviously, your contextual explanation of David and Goliath, and that is something that'll stay with me. Absolutely love it, and very pertinent indeed. You only have your reputation at the end of the day. You can be dressed in the most expensive clothes, rock up in a Ferrari. People will, people will still see you for who you are based on the reputation that precedes you. And I think that is where we should really leave it today. So Adi Kaimowitz, we need to still have that coffee. I think you're going to have to teach me how to kite surf at some stage. I live right close to you, so we'll make a plan to have that coffee. But truly inspirational, man. Thank you for your time.
So much to say. Big hugs, lots of love. I'm so happy to have spent time with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And by the way, this is not the last time we have this conversation. I'll be getting you on again. And just a quick shameless plug, where do people find you?
If they Google Virtual Actuary, they will find us everywhere, and they can get hold of us in a million different ways.
Officer and a gentleman, thank you so much for your time, Adi.
Thank you, Kieno. Ciao, ciao.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.